I'm sitting in a wheelchair. At 16 years old, decided to attempt suicide, severed my spinal cord, and became a paraplegic. I wouldn't change anything in my past because there are strengths there in all of my times of failure and triumph. All of these moments have culminated in the person I am. It's half the battle to just get things off your chests. The current challenge you're experiencing is only setting yourself up to be stronger and ready for the next one that's ahead. But if my injury hadn't happened, I promised you I wouldn't be here anymore. I want to be reaching the world. At the end of the day, we all die. So while we're here, let's choose to give things meaning however we see fit. I can't change anyone. The least I could do is be an example of what's possible.
I just want to start this episode with a message of gratitude for everyone who tunes in each and every week. Thank you. I feel like I owe you a massive thank you for all your love and all your support. You've allowed me to grow and connect with so many amazing people, have so many amazing conversations, which I'm then able to go and share with you. So thank you for allowing me to do this and supporting what I'm doing. Can I ask you a favor though? And I can't tell you how much this can change the course of the podcast, the guests that I get on, everything that happens around here, just by doing one simple thing. And that simple thing is pressing the subscribe button. It honestly helps so much in allowing the podcast and the guests to just get bigger and better. And I sit here and I think about the next 12 months and what that's going to look like. And a lot of that is going to be fueled off the back of your love, your support for the podcast and everything that's happening here. So from my heart, thank you. Let's keep doing it. And I can't wait to see what the next 12 months holds for this show and for us as a community. Enjoy the episode. Matthew Caruana, welcome to the Better Project. Super grateful for you making the trip out here on a very, very hot day.
Man, can't just say, coming to the studio from the stinking hot weather outside, and it is beautiful in here. And man, this setup you got is incredible.
It's been a long time. This is your second time on the podcast. And actually last night, as people may have seen, I shared on social media, I went back and had a little listen to our first time, and we have grown so much since then, both of us, and the conversation is going to be a lot different from the first one.
Yes, yeah. Definitely want to evolve that conversation and take things a bit further. The first one was great though. I feel like there's so much more underneath that. And now, because of, both of us have grown so much, there's so much more to explore.
Definitely. I think where I want to start is for people who haven't listened to that episode, don't know who you are, I want to give a bit of context on the person that you are and what we need to know about Matthew Caruana to better understand the man that you are today.
Yeah. I suppose to just brush over it is, you can't tell on camera here, but I'm sitting in a wheelchair, and at 16 years old, decided to attempt suicide, threw myself off my local shopping center, severed my spinal cord, and became a paraplegic. Thankfully, I was able to bounce back from that. I was able to transform my mindset, and most importantly, I found purpose. Suicide is never good, but that event was the best thing that ever happened to me. It's not the event that shaped who I am now, but the supportive people I had in my life, and then also the choices and decisions I made afterwards that made me who I am now. And so very grateful to be in the position that I am, and love what I'm working on now. Went from wanting to end my life to now wanting to live at the utmost potential I can.
It's the sad reality that sometimes it does take a event like that for someone to actually want to make change. There was physical change that happened to you, but you had to make a lot of change mentally from that journey and from everything that happened. And how do we, this is a big question, but how do we stop people from making those big decisions to jump off a building, to try and commit suicide, for them to actually make a change in their life? That's a big question. And I think a lot of it comes from the work that we're doing and being preventative and giving people the tools. And we speak a lot about mental fitness, those tools that people can implement to prevent them going down those dark paths. But what's your opinion on it all? Because I know it's a big question, but I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, and I think it's a great question too, because prevention is always better than cure. And unfortunately, you can't cure someone that has completed suicide. It's happened. It's done.
Yeah.
That's it. Though, and this is sort of very timely you asked this, because I've been reflecting a lot on the ABS suicide statistics recently. And one of the statistics that came out of that study was over 90% of suicides in 2022 showed at least one risk factor prior. The reason I bring that up is if over 90% showed one risk factor, if we're equipping people to know what to look out for, know how to have the conversations, and know how to support someone who's in that place, I think we would transform suicide. We would start to actually see progression. You know, if we see a warning sign, you know, something doesn't look right, addressing it, actually having the conversation, you know, when something's up, speaking up and being okay with saying, hey, Nick, hey, Joey, hey, Belinda, I've noticed X, Y, Z. I just wanted to check in and see how you're going. Checking in it's first, it's foremost. Making sure you listen is huge. Directing them, sharing and promoting other support services, whether it be close family, friends, professional supports. We have many supports that are out there, thankfully. Though most importantly is to actually have a genuine intention to want to support them. That is the biggest thing. And it sounds simple, but all else will unfold as a result of your intention. If you have genuine support for Belinda, you'll do your best to make sure she's supported, make sure that she is safe, and with genuine intention turns into interest, and interests does create a genuine support. So that's what I would love for people to be more aware of, is their intentions, and also be equipped and be ready to have the conversation as well.
Definitely. And what I think is a big part of it is building strong relationships with people and having below surface conversations. Especially, you know, we're males, we have a lot of banter, a lot of above level bullshit that we talk about with each other.
Yeah.
But if we're not having those below surface conversations, even if it's just like genuinely asking, like, how are you? Because in society, we just go, how are you? And someone goes, yeah, good, living the dream, awesome. But we never go below that. We never go deeper. And once we actually start to do that, so like if I go to, hey man, like, how are you? And you start opening up, you're going to feel a lot more comfortable with me. We've created that trust. We've created that container that we can actually open up about our feelings and what's going on. So if you are feel yourself going down a dark path, you can go, hey Nick, like, man, I'm struggling right now. You know who to go to. Instead of so many men out there, they don't have those relationships. They don't have those containers. So when they are struggling, they feel lost. They don't know where to go. So they try and deal with it themselves. And sadly, a lot of the times that can go down a dark path that a lot of men don't come out of.
Absolutely, yeah. And the thing about deep conversations is that it doesn't always have to be about bad stuff, things that's troubling you. You can have a deep conversation about something great as well. But I think the ability, like you said, to have the conversation, to go that little bit deeper, a little bit below the surface and just see what's more, I think could really unfold something beautiful in terms of support, in terms of your relationship with anyone. Most of all, it enhances meaningful connection. That's what I see. And so one example of something that's not as deep, well, no, deep but not as dark, I suppose, is what are you passionate about? And like I've come across many people with the work that I do. I've heard all kinds of stories. I remember this one student in particular who was extremely troubled. You know, he was basically about to go to prison. He had all these charges stacked against him. He was going to court the next day after I was running the workshop at his school. And I spent some time with him one-on-one, about an hour and a half. And, you know, even someone who society condemns, says there's a write-off, so to speak, deep down actually wanted to do a lot of good in the community. You know, he's someone who not only had he struggled with drugs previously, he was 15 at the time that I met him, but his mum was an ice addict. He's never met his dad. So all he's seen is his mother manipulate, rob and steal all his life. He went down a similar path, realized, oh shit, I've got all these things against me. I need to make a change. And someone in that space, even deep down, wants to do good. He wants to help other people with their drug habits. He wants to make a difference in the world. And, someone who was extremely, extremely closed off when I first met them was yearning for that deep conversation. So when I asked about that, you could see his shoulders went back, his chest came up, he spoke with conviction. It just, remembering that moment is something significant. And we can support people by actually taking an interest in their passions, support people by just listening to what's going on for them. There are many ways we can have deep conversations. I think it's important that we have them.
Definitely. And it's something that I'm, from the work that I do in the podcast, I really implement, especially in sporting teams. So I play high level OzTag, high masculinity, all that stuff, all the banter that comes with it. But for example, last night we had a bonding session, and usually it would just be get on the piss, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was connecting with a lot of the boys one-on-one. And I sat down with one of them and was like, hey man, what's your goals? And going through all that and just having that deep conversation. And through me being able to hold space, I've found a lot of the boys have felt comfortable and trusted in opening up. And some of them actually are struggling. And the thing is, what you see on the outside, just like the scenario that you mentioned before, that kid was struggling because all he seen was drugs, crime and stuff like that. But down deep, he actually wanted to help people. And the same is if you see people that are happy and seen as successful and living the best life, but down deep, they're hurting, they're in pain. But we never dive below. And it's just by holding space, building that trust, as we mentioned before, and creating that container. And it's so, so important that we do this. And it's not hard. It really, all it takes is a phone call, a text message. Hey, let's go out for a coffee, lunch, dinner, whatever the fact is. It's really not that hard. We just need to make it a priority to do so.
Absolutely. And by doing so, by asking the question, I think what it also does is it doesn't, when we're not judging, we're genuinely being there to support them. And the important thing is too, to whether someone is okay or they're not okay, both are okay. It is okay to not be okay, but it's also okay to be okay as well. And I think with whatever someone shares, being okay with whatever they share. So that's where they're at. And whether they are holding back or they're being open with you, we have to acknowledge and respect where they're at. Part of that is not judging.
That's it. And that's what holding space is. Holding space without judgment. And they may not open up fully the first time, but you've created that trust. So the next time they come to you, they'll open up a little bit more, a little bit more, and a little bit more. And then once you've built that full trust, that full connection, and if they are really struggling and you go, hey, maybe you should seek professional help, they're going to be like, okay, I'm going to go do that.
Yeah.
That's one person that I would say you've prevented from going down a dark path.
Absolutely.
Or from creating space and having a below surface conversation.
And as you mentioned earlier, I love the analogy of the container because you expand the depth of that container, right? It has more capacity the deeper we go. And so, man, I think that's brilliant. And, support is out there. And, recently I've just joined Lifeline as an ambassador. And I'm very, very, very proud to say that, but also very inspired by them. They not only have the 13 11 14 number, but you can text them. If you don't want to call someone and speak to them, you can literally send them a text on your phone, 0477 13 11 14. Well, let's say you don't want to give out your number. You can even go online, they have an online crisis chat where you can access a conversation there with a professional or a trained volunteer. They're extremely, extremely useful service. And look, it's a little bit of promotion here, but the reason I'm saying this is that's something that I needed when I was younger. And if I had had that at the time, I wouldn't be sitting in this wheelchair today. It would have changed a lot.
It would have, hey. But you wouldn't be sat here today, would you? This conversation.
And so in saying that, I wouldn't change anything in my past. Because, and before my injury, can't remember if we spoke about this much, but how I used heaps into the gym and all that stuff.
You full jacked and straight, bro, you're a bodybuilder, man, ready to step on stage.
Man, I look, a lot of that was fueled from the wrong place. It's fueled from insecurity. It's fueled from ego. And you know what? I got the results. I was consistent, hardworking, disciplined, persistent, yada, 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 all that stuff. Like I said, it came from the wrong place. But because I was all those things, disciplined, consistent, persistent, all those things, I've taken that and I've used it in a different way. So the reason I say I wouldn't change anything in my past is because there are strengths there in all of my times of failure and triumph. All of these moments have culminated in the person I am. And the fact that I got that body, for example, beforehand shows I was all those strengths. So, okay, it's all well and good to have those strengths, but how are you utilizing them today? And a big thing that I'm all about now is my rehab. Despite hearing, Matt, you've severed your spinal cord, it is impossible for anything to come back anymore. And, I've got a lot of friends who doubt me. And you know what? They can say what they want. And they're in a place where they don't see it being possible for themselves. And that's okay. They're not wrong, but I know what's possible for me. I know my potential. And, thankfully with that mindset, I've started progressing from having nothing, and I mean nothing, come back. I'm now doing sit-to-stands every day. I'm copying on that exoskeleton and things are progressing. Like the exoskeleton literally measures how much I'm doing and how much the exo is supporting me. It's a robot, it's a device I get into and it assists me walking. And every single session we're seeing our numbers go down, as in exo support numbers go down and the effort I'm putting in go up. So those traits I used to build my body before my injury are exactly what I'm using today to build myself back up onto my feet. And whether it be that or any other initiative that I'm working towards, I'm thankful that everything happened how it did. So I can take those strengths, use them in other ways.
Man, I'm getting goosebumps because I can feel your energy. I can feel your self-belief. Because I remember when we spoke the first time on the podcast, you're like, I believe that I can walk again. And your biggest goal was to just do a sit and stand unsupported. Now it looks like you're smashing it.
On the way, man. On the way, those sit stands are progressing a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like little things like my glute muscles, I didn't have at the time, but now I do. And they're being strengthened every week as well. I mean, I'm doing rehab every day. It's progressing every day. Though I say every week because when I hit the exo, I see the numbers increase.
Yeah.
And man, is it just inspiring it invigorates me even just thinking about it, because I know with conviction now, even more than ever before, this is going to happen.
I can feel it. And it's just amazing how far technology has come, like the exoskeleton, to allow you to do the rehab that you're doing. It's fucking amazing and awesome. And it gives not only yourself, but so many other people in a similar position to you so much hope that they can walk again.
The hardest thing, man, is to overcome the mental barriers that get in the way. Like, this is like my injury and this whole rehab journey is the hardest journey that I've ever been on. Look at me, I'm 23 years old and saying that, but genuinely, man, I mean, from being told it's impossible, it'll never happen, this, even after my injury. So this is now 7-8 months after my injury. I'm now home. I went to a specialist appointment about pain, and they were asking me about my goals and this and that and this and that. And I was sharing my goals about walking again and, making that happen. They asked, well, how long do you think it'll take? I said, I might be able to do a sit to stand in 2 years and all that stuff. I think I'm going to do it, all that stuff. Look, at the time, that was what I thought. Was that reality? No, it wasn't. But I remember distinctly a week later, we got a letter in the mail home and it was addressed to my mum. And this was a letter from the specialist to forward on to my GP. And my mum happened to leave it on the kitchen counter. I happened to glance over it. And in the goals section, it mentioned my goals. But underneath it, it also said, Matt is delusional in his way of thinking, word for word. And I remember that so distinctly. And, to this day, I just got chills saying that. I mean, it affects me and it aggravates me that someone would say that to someone who has a goal in mind and wants to work towards it. Because what does that do? It creates a block and a limitation in their own mind. And for so long, believing that it wasn't possible. Because, after I read that at the time, so I'm 16 at the time, not too long after my injury, despite what had happened, attempting suicide, given my mindset, I had basically no hope. All I was working on was like sitting balance and all that stuff. And something clicked a few years later, where that's a whole other story in itself, though, when I just had conviction that, no, this is something I'm going to work towards. And when I had that moment, I gave up my disability pension. I gave up my disability parking permit. This is back in 2018. I snapped that thing and I haven't had it since. I haven't had a pension since. And it's funny because you give up that identity and you become something more by choosing to be more in that moment. There's no coincidence why my rehab started progressing. I started having quad function come back. I started doing more rehab, which obviously is going to help progress things, but my mindset and identity completely shifted. And things started transforming. Not only my rehab, my speaking. At the time, they were my two main goals and focus points at the time. But that's translated to so many other things now as well. And things are just growing and growing further because I'm choosing to be more now and choosing that the only way is up. Truly.
You didn't let that label of being disabled actually define who you are. You're like, fuck that. Like, I am Matthew Caruana. I may be in a wheelchair right now, but I know I'm going to walk again one day.
It's a temporary stepping stone on my journey. And walking again, is it close? It's probably going to be a while till I get there. But man, every step of the way, every session, I wake up and start at 6:30 or whenever I start in the morning. Most sessions are 6:30, but every session I show up for, that only makes me one step closer. Every day that even when I don't feel like doing it, saying, no, look, I've got to work on this, and at a deeper level, it's not even about me. Truly, one thing I'm obsessed with is in the future, I'm going to have kids. I know for a fact I'm going to have kids, and it just inspires me. And this is where a lot of my fire really comes from, is when I have kids, that they're going to know that their dreams are possible, that any goal that they set their mind to, they are going to be able to achieve. Not only because I say it, but because I am it. I can say things, I can do things, but if I am an example, they will know.
You embody it.
That's more important than anything you say.
Definitely is. And for James that's listening out there who doesn't want to get up early and go to the gym, like, from what I'm understanding, you need that really deep inner desire for you to continue to push yourself and to achieve your goals. Would I be correct in saying that?
I definitely think it helps amplify things. It doesn't have to start there though. You can start surface, right? Like, for example, having deep conversations. It doesn't have to start like straight in the deep end. You can start baby steps, right? Maybe your first goal getting to the gym is just to be shredded, just to lose a bit of weight, just to gain a bit of muscle. Sure, start with that. But then make it about the other things. How do you feel after you work out? When you really push yourself and, do you feel good? I'm sure you would. After every session when I smash myself, even this morning, like pushing myself on, like doing cardio, like sort of CrossFit style training. And I felt like a machine afterwards. I mean, don't get me wrong, was extremely uncomfortable, but I left the gym feeling like $1 million. And I don't go for the size anymore. Look, I'm working on wheelchair basketball. That's my main reason I'm training, how I do. Though, I go mostly for how I feel. Simple as that. I walk away feeling like $1 million every time. And you know what? I become more resilient as a result. I become stronger, not only physically, but mentally too, because I push myself beyond my current boundaries.
That's how it should be. It should all be about, yes, you being healthy, but you have to feel healthy. You have to feel good. And for you to feel $1 million every time you smash yourself in the gym, that's how it should be for everyone. I go to the gym, I smash myself. I may not have wanted to get out of bed that morning, but I forced myself to go to the gym because I know that it's going to allow me to turn up as a better version of myself, not only for myself, but for my daughter, my partner, for everyone around me. So I get my ass out of bed, I go to the gym, and as soon as I finish my session and I walk out, I'm like, I'm so grateful that I turned up today.
And that energy you carry through when you walk home and see your wife, see your daughter, partner. I apologize. But man, that's so important, right? But I also think too, it's important to have boundaries when days you can't go. For example, with me, a lot of people don't know this about people with spinal cord injuries, but skin issues. Like if you've got a skin problem anywhere in your body, typically your backside, which is the most common part, because you're sitting down all day. If you've got a little, let's say a tear in the skin, a cut, pressure wound, a pimple pop or whatever, you've got to have time off your bum. You got to go stay in bed, get on a standing frame, something like that. Just got to get off that. So that's a boundary of mine that I have. I won't train on days where I've got skin issues, plain and simple, because I need that to be good. But if everything's good, and there are days that I don't feel like it, let's go to the gym, because that's the day where it means the most. Yeah. And that's the days where I find I have the best sessions. I don't know why, how the universe works in that regard, but
it's crazy.
It's a blessing, man.
The days you don't want to go, you're fucking so tired, you drag yourself to the gym and then you smash it. And it's like, where did this come from? I had no energy prior and now I'm full of friggin' energy, man. It's so awesome.
And the difference, it's like a complete 180 shift, and man, there's no better feeling than that.
Definitely. We mentioned before mental fitness, and a lot of what you do is around that. I wanted to get your take on, what does mental fitness, or how do you define mental fitness? What does it mean to you?
I think there's a lot of aspects that come into mental fitness, whether it be presence, whether it be how to, self-awareness, controlling, conquering anxieties, being able to bounce back when times get tough, all these things. The most important principle of mental fitness for me, and this is something that I believe we all ever evolve, there's no perfect point with this, is presence.
Definitely.
Presence, man. And that encompasses so many different topics in itself. The ability to be present goes back to having deep conversations. The ability to be present is the ability to sit with your own emotions. The ability to be present is to be acceptant of hard times. The ability to be present goes into so many different angles. And from that, we can explore all these other topics of mental fitness as well. But that, I think, is the biggest layer when it comes to mental fitness.
I love that. The way I see mental fitness is the connection between mind, body, and spirit. That's the way I like to see it, because everything that you've mentioned falls under that banner as well. But the top of it, I think as men or as a society, I feel like we're so disconnected in all three areas. Like we may go to the gym, but do we take care of our mind? Do we take care of our spirit? It's all good to have the physical aspect, but what about the other two? And then vice versa. So if we need to connect all three for us to be able to turn up as the best version of ourselves and build that mental fitness every single day. And what I love about it is it's something that we can implement every single day. It's just about getting 1% better. And we speak a lot about the stigma that's surrounding mental health. Why is there a stigma? Because every time we think about it, anxiety, depression, suicide, in reality, I see that as mental illness. We all have mental health. That's our baseline. That's how I see it. Mm-hmm. So mental fitness is up here. Our baseline is mental health, below is mental illness. Now we're going to dip, we're going to go up and down. But if we have these tools, these mental fitness tools in our toolbox that we can implement every single day, if we do dip, a girlfriend breaks up with us, we lose our job, whatever the case is, we can implement these tools to pick ourselves back up. So I think it's very pivotal that we change that terminology, and in a way, it makes mental health cool to talk about. There's no stigma around it. Like I can go, hey man, let's talk about mental fitness. But if I go to someone else, go mental health, they're like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. So it's very important that we change our terminology around it and make it something that we can all focus on. We can all implement these tools on an everyday basis to allow us to turn up as the best version of ourselves.
One thing I'd love to address there in relation to stigma as well, which I think is a huge thing that we can tackle easily, is not just for having conversations, but also how are you leaving people? Like, what I mean by that is, let's say we're talking about mental health. Someone is struggling and, they're going through a deep pit of depression at that stage. Where are we leaving them? So Are we leaving them with a sense of hope? Leaving them with a strategy that they could implement? Leaving them with reassurance? Are we leaving them with despair? Or are we leaving them with support? There's always different angles we can leave someone or any conversation. And that in itself shifts things away from being focused on what's negative towards what's more quote unquote positive. And I love the idea of where we leave people because, I mean, for example, I remember back in 2019, I was at the Gold Coast Brisbane talking at a conference, and this panel asked us for the quote unquote imagination declaration. What would you do in the space of youth mental health to progress statistics? And I said, we have to change the conversation. I said, look at conversations around mental health like a shit sandwich. Maybe have a fairly light approach, but then get to the meat of it all, like address what's really going on, but make sure you leave someone with a sense of hope, leave someone with a sense of inspiration, a sense of, support, something that's going to at least be higher than where they were at, so to speak. So like if he was like the emotion, for example, this is where they're feeling, being able to leave them at a place higher than where they're at, I think is more important. And what that shows is that if you're willing to have that conversation like a shit sandwich about someone's struggles, you're willing to step into their challenge with them from an empathetic place, not a sympathetic, but empathetic place. And because you're coming from empathy, not sympathy, you're able to take that conversation and just leave them on a higher note. And every conversation is different. There's no one-size-fits-all answer for this stuff. Being able to listen to what they're saying, you're going to understand and hear what they need to hear, what they really want, and deep down, what they need.
A quick word from our sponsor, One Stop Pod. If you're looking to start a podcast, but you're sitting on the fence because you don't know where to start, or maybe you even already have your own podcast and you want to take it to the next level, One Stop Pod can help you from our high quality podcast studio, post-production services, and even podcast mentoring to ensure that you have your foundations, structures, and systems in place to ensure that your podcast can grow and blossom. This is honestly something that I wish I had when I first started my podcast, because when I dived in, I had no clue what I was doing. I had no guidance, no information. I was just like, okay, what do I do? With One Stop Pod, we got everything for you. All you have to do is focus on having the conversations that you want to have. If you're interested in finding out more about our services and our packages, feel free to check us out on Instagram at onestoppod_. Let's get back to the podcast. How do we make that conversation more comfortable? Say Reese that's listening goes, hey Matt, I'm struggling right now, but the old version of you doesn't feel comfortable speaking about mental health and those deeper topics. How do we learn to make that more comfortable so you're not leaving that person feeling like their feelings have been disregarded and then it makes the stigma worse because they're not going to go talk about it anymore because they feel like, fuck, no one really cares anyway.
Yeah, so let's say someone's doing it tough, and let's say they actually don't even want to tell you. Let's say that they have their walls up and whatever. Like I said earlier on, it's so key that we stay non-judgmental. So accepting that that's where they're at, maybe asking like, hey, are you sure? Like I've noticed X, Y, Z. And if they still don't want to speak, engage with them. Whether it be in a conversation about something that they love, whether it be about going in about an activity that they love, actually taking an interest in them. Spending time with someone is huge. Like love languages, right? Be able to spend time, gift giving, words of affirmation, all these different things. They're ways that we can share our support with someone else.
Okay. And what I wanted to ask around that is, if we were to flip it, if the person doesn't feel comfortable, I'm not saying the person that's struggling, but the person that's struggling goes to someone else, and that person that they go to doesn't feel comfortable in a way supporting them, how do we make that conversation more comfortable for the person that doesn't feel comfortable talking about mental health? Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does. And unfortunately, it's a matter of a choice. at the end of the day, just to have the conversation, to want to support other people. And to put it bluntly, like the ABS suicide statistics, over 90% of suicides showed at least one risk factor. What if that one risk factor that you just brushed aside was the reason someone threw themselves off their shopping center because they felt like they had no reason to be here? They felt like they were worthless. You know, I mean, I share that because it resonates deeply with me. I was nearly one of those suicide statistics back in 2016 when I was 16 years old. Thankfully, I'm left in this wheelchair. Though, if we just have the courage, because you know what? If it's uncomfortable, it does take a little bit of courage to address an uncomfortable topic in conversation. Just to say, hey, look, I've noticed XYZ. How are you really feeling? Because I want you to know deep down I care.
And it's so true. Like, for the people listening, you may feel uncomfortable talking about all of this stuff. But as Matt just said, if you've just brushed that risk factor and someone's gone and thrown themselves off a building just because you felt uncomfortable speaking to someone for a couple of minutes, in a way, it's not stupid, but it's like, come on, like, if you seriously just can't have a conversation with someone and actually care about where they are at in life, what are you going to do when a family member or your own child or something comes up to you?
Absolutely.
Big reflection, really big reflection.
Yeah, and that pinches at a whole nother level, right? And so it's really about, well, what could you be preventing and what could that lead to? Do you genuinely care? Have the conversation. And like I said, easier said than done.
Definitely.
It's tough. But to have that little bit of courage to say, hey, I support you. Hey, I'm here. Hey, look, I'm here to have a chat if you need. And then actually following up and being okay to listen. Not when they're talking to you, drift off, look at the clock, think about what you're going to make for dinner or what chores you got to get done or whatever. No, to genuinely be there with that person. To say, hey, I'm here for you. Give them your physical presence. If I was talking to you, Nick, and I was facing the other way, you don't feel like I'm speaking to you. Exactly. But if you were opening yourself up and being vulnerable, and if I wasn't listening, you're going to think that I don't care, you can't trust me, whatever it may be. And so not only physically being present, but mentally being present, listening and trying to understand the words that you're sharing, right? Which leads into being emotionally present, which is showing empathy, trying to put myself in your shoes and see the world from your eyes, because I'm not in your shoes right now. But if I do my best to hear you out, put myself in that position, hear you out and see the full picture for what it is, everything you're feeling makes sense. Because no matter what emotion comes up, it always makes sense because something's triggered it. There's no judgment. There's empathy. You're listening and you're present. They're going to feel your support. That's really all it comes down to. Listening.
It's here. We have 2 ears and one mouth for a reason, right?
That's exactly right. And if you're like me, you got big ears.
But yeah, I definitely agree with everything that you've just said, because a lot of times people get caught up thinking that they have to solve people's problems. They have to have the answers. No, you don't. A lot of the times, someone just needs to vent. And for the men out there, if you're in a relationship, females like to vent, right? Look at it like that. People just like to talk, get it off their chest. And if it's something deeper, you may be able to, or you will be able to direct them to the right places if they need professional help. But a lot of the times there's support, creating that container, as we mentioned earlier. That's all someone needs.
And if someone's struggling, like, think of it like like a can of Coke, right? That can of Coke, it's already got, what is it? It's carbonated.
Yeah, carbonated soda or something.
Yeah, whatever you call it, right? It's already got pressure in there. If that can's full and you're feeling like, your can's full, imagine putting more air pressure in there. What's going to happen to that can? It's going to explode, and it's not going to be pretty. that's called a breaking point, and we all have them. By just having the conversation, we empty that can halfway. It's half the battle to just get things off your chest. And if we did that, man, I mean, thinking back in my experience, I mean, we touched on my story a little bit, but being 12 years old, falling into depression, and for 4 years keeping things to myself and going about vices to not only escape the pain but hide it from everyone else, and then build this physique to prove to the world that I was doing well, posting on Facebook, you know, all the likes, comments, all that shit. It all came through, and you know, I was a Coke can, just close, putting more and more and more air pressure that, you know, eventually I popped, I exploded, and that was my jump, right? No one needs to hit a breaking point. Not everyone's breaking point is going to be attempting suicide, but I think we'd be a lot happier and a lot more peaceful, more importantly, if we didn't experience that. And, you know, life's, like you said earlier, we're going to dip at times. It's not like a flat line. Yeah. If a flat line, we're dead. Right? Like, I think of a heart monitor. It's always going to be like that. And the previous challenge or the current challenge you're experiencing is only setting yourself up to be stronger and ready for the next one that's ahead. And to know that you're growing stronger is something you can carry and pass on to those that you care about. Because those challenges didn't come for no reason. Not only are they strengthening you up, but they're also teaching you lessons that you didn't know beforehand. Because if you knew the answer, if you knew the lesson or whatever, you wouldn't have the challenge, you wouldn't have the issue. So that lesson is now to be passed on. And I think if we can help support others from that place, you know, the struggle that we once know, that we've gotten out of, and pass it on to someone else that's in that same place we know and what it felt like to be there, to know that we supported them through that, wow, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And the way I like to explain it now, especially now being a dad myself, is my daughter just started walking, right? Do you think she just got up and walked straight away?
Absolutely.
No. She was faced with so many challenges of learning how to walk. She fell over, got up, cried, but she didn't give up. She continued to try again, and now she's running around everywhere. She still falls over, but what does she do? She gets back up. Yet, when we become adults, we kind of lose that part of us of, fuck, there's a challenge ahead of us. Okay, cool. I may fall down, but keep getting back up. A lot of the times, we get knocked down and we stay down. Or we don't even face that challenge. We stay in our comfort zone. And for me, that was like the first 20 years of my life, staying in my comfort zone, not speaking to people. And I think it comes full circle to what you mentioned before with the kid being surrounded by drugs, and then now that's his passion. I love it because it just shows that the passion, the purpose is in the pain.
It is. Purpose does come from that.
For me, the pain was not being able to talk to people, feeling not heard, dealing with social anxiety, now chucking myself way out of my comfort zone, having a podcast, you know, wanting to run workshops, be on stage, all that kind of stuff, that came from my pain points. Anyone can do that. But let me ask you, how do we tap into those pain points without going down the big dark hole?
That's the $1 million question, right? And this is the thing, like, whether we like it or not, we're all going to face challenges. That's just a fact. And no one's life is perfect. It's just how do we respond to these challenges, right? And so the challenges we once experienced, no matter what they are, there's no right, there's no wrong, there's no better, there's no worse. There's only your objective reality. Well, subjective, everyone's reality is different. But finding what you utilize to overcome your hard times, not just hard times, but also what's helped you achieve great times as well. All these lessons you've learned along your way are lessons to be shared. And I believe every lesson can be monetized. There's a way that we can create a career and you know, a way of life around it. I mean, so many times, so I got started speaking just by sharing my story, right? And it was at a hospital program and whatever. And I remember some people would ask me, you know, Matt, what do you want to do for the rest of your life and all that stuff? Which I hate that question, by the way. But anyways, no one knows what they want to do for the rest of their life. But, you know, I would say, you know, I want to be a speaker. I want to not only share my story, run workshops, all this stuff. And, people said it was a dream. So often. Hell, in my HSC, by the way, I didn't finish my HSC. I only did 5 units of year 12 and year 11. But, in one of my subjects, I got a state ranking. And everyone was like, Matt, what university are you going to go to? And I was like, I'm not going to go to university. I want to be a speaker. Why would you waste your potential? And that used to set me off. Deep down in my heart, I knew that my mission is to influence meaningful change in other people's lives. All the pain that I'd experienced. And you know what? It took me ending up in a wheelchair to learn all these small and big lessons, right? But because I'd been through that was my gift. Because deep down, every time I spoke, and I'd have a line of young people coming up to share and just not only say thank you, but sometimes they want to say, Matt, you're the first person I've told, but I've been feeling, thinking, doing X, Y, Z for the past number of years. You're the first person I'm telling. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that, whether it be after me sharing my story, after a workshop. But one thing that I know is what I'm doing, it is my purpose. I went through all this pain, not because I need to get through it, because also I need to pass it on. Not the pain, but the lessons and everything that came out from it. We are blessed with the challenges in our life, every one of us. And I've met people who have experienced a lot worse than I have. They say the same thing. And stories that make my toes curl, even though they quote unquote shouldn't. And, they literally, they stun me. But to hear them say, this is what I'm meant to be doing. And I'm blessed that happened to me. Man, that just, gives me chills every time.
Now, for the people listening, this doesn't mean you have to chuck yourself off a building and do what Matt did to tap into that. But
I'm not going to write you how to get in a wheelchair, but
yeah. But it goes to show by learning from your lessons and the things that you're now teaching, people don't have to go down that dark path. They can tap into that and then actually, in a way, create a life by design. Live the life that they actually want to live. They don't have to go down the dark path to have, like you to jump off a building, have this life-changing moment to go, oh, fuck, this is what I want to do. We don't have to do that.
Absolutely not. I think there's, there is the pain that we experience, but also the advice and the wisdom that comes to us in our everyday life that we might not even recognize. And it's there. Sometimes we just miss it. Sometimes the lessons we needed all along come out in ways that we never once saw being possible. I mean, as I was driving here, man, look, I shared it on the last podcast, but I'm going to share it just now because it's very relevant to what we're talking about. The guy on the train.
Yep.
Because it was around this area that the guy jumped on. From being someone who did the absolute best to hide and, just put up this facade for everyone, hide my emotions, not really want to have a real conversation. I'm scared to be myself. And to have a complete stranger on a train come up to me and say, what did you do to yourself? And for 4 months lying about what had happened to a complete outlandish stranger, just saying, I attempted suicide. And him saying, that was pretty fucking stupid, wasn't it? What are you going to do now? And all this stuff. And I mean, at the time, I saw that as the most confronting thing. And even in the months afterwards, what happened was I started having a supportive network around me. My girlfriend at the time and I, we became so much closer. My parents, siblings, my friends, not all my mates knew how to support me, but they just didn't know how to, support's not their fault. Those relationships drifted, unfortunately, but I found out who my true friends were. the lesson I needed all that time, ever since I was 12, was just to speak up and have that conversation. But how it came to me was this complete random stranger that was wacky enough and loud enough to just get it out of me. And, you know, sometimes the lessons come to us in ways that we don't see, but hey, let's keep our lights on so we can, see what's in front of us.
Definitely. And I think that comes back to what you mentioned before, and being present.
Yeah.
Being present on our surroundings, everything that's happening, especially in the society that we live in now. It's so go, go, go. So many people are disconnected that we never actually take time to be present and think and feel what's actually happening within us and around us. And it's very pivotal. And I say it all the time, it only takes 10 minutes. Really. You could take 10 minutes out of your day, do some meditation, do some reading, or just sit there and just be with yourself. Yet, you know, probably when you're driving in today, if you look at other people, they're listening to music, they got earpods in, whatever, talking to people, they're not actually just being with their own thoughts. Because it's a lot of the times it's uncomfortable. A lot of stuff comes up that people don't want to deal with. Yet it's those uncomfortable conversations that we actually need to have. Because a lot of the times what I found is we may be struggling, for example. I feel a lot of the answers that we're seeking are within. We just got to dive deep and ask the right questions and think about them. Not look to music and external modalities. Yeah, they have their place. But a lot of the times the answers are always within us. We just got to dive deep and have that uncomfortable conversation with ourselves.
Yeah, you ask the right questions, you'll find the answer within yourself. And, you know, let's say you do get stumped, you don't know what questions to ask, you don't know what the answer is or whatever it may be, then seek support to find those answers, because people genuinely care. Even complete strangers. I've had many moments with people that I've never met before that have, like that guy on the train, that have, you know, given me support and given me answers that I didn't know I needed at the time.
Jumping into basketball and what the stuff that you're doing now, how did that all come about? What was the trigger that goes, all right, I'm going to go play basketball now?
So I played before my injury for a little bit. So one thing I'll just go on a little tangent here for a second. One thing I didn't mention was before my injury, and even after my injury for quite a while, I was always a lone wolf.
Yeah.
I was always in a me sort of headspace, in a way, where basketball before my injury, I never saw it as like a team sport, like even though it is. I used to play because, you know, I had all the muscle and whatever. I used to just drive to the basket and get a layup. That was my thing. And it just worked.
Could have at least shot some threes.
I was never a three-point shooter. And to this day, not quite. But yeah, like I used to just, you know, power my way through and, you know, make the layup. And I was the guy on court yelling at my teammates, do this, get there. What are you doing? Don't slack off, all that stuff. And, you know, after my injury, I didn't play for years till end of 2021. So it was 6 years after my injury that I finally bought a basketball and went to my local half court. And all I was doing at the time was shooting hoops. And then I saw that my local basketball stadium were doing wheelchair sessions. I was like, this is brilliant. I started, training down there. And it was with kids that were 8 to 12 years old. And I was 22. And I was like, oh man. But I started actually coaching there. They gave me a position. I was very, very thankful for that. And, you know, I was, you know, literally training and coaching with kids that are 8 to 12 years old for weeks.
Removes that ego, eh?
Man, it takes you back to ground zero, right? And then I saw that was these New South Wales tryouts. And, you know, I'd only been shooting hoops for about, 2-3 months at that stage. And someone said I should try out. So I was like, all right, why not? Thankfully, you know, with all the practice, my shooting was, you know, not great, but it was like half decent. And, you know, my speed and all that stuff. And thankfully, I was going to the gym before that sort of built my strength and my speed and all that stuff up. that, I made the team. I represented New South Wales in Ballarat at the Kevin Coombs Cup. And, that was the first time I remember when I represented New South Wales, I started thinking about the team that I'm part of, right? Because I think there's a lot that basketball can almost relate to life in a way. I mean, if I play basketball like I'm playing by myself, if I try to drive in my wheelchair, no, that ain't going to work. These chairs are huge, man. And you ain't going through someone. Yeah. You're going to fall over more than likely. So I had to start setting picks, setting screens, making way for my other teammates to get the basket, or maybe there's a pick and roll, and then I get the layup or the bucket or whatever.
It's all tactical.
Exactly right. Playing my strengths in the team setting. It's not just about me. It's about the team. There's a whole M and E in team. So you are a significant part of the team. Though use your strengths so you can amplify others to use them as well. Because not only do they have their strengths, but they're going to feed off you.
Definitely. Is it as rough as like wheelchair rugby where he's like smash tire end up on the ground and stuff?
I'm a bit biased in like rugby and all that stuff. To be honest, I don't really watch it, but a whole bunch of guys knocking into each other intentionally. No, not my thing. It gets pretty rough though. Yeah. There's a lot of flipping out. Like literally last training session, I flipped out like 5 times. But that's on the high end. I usually don't fall out that much, but just got to make sure you pick yourself back up and get back on court.
At least you can't feel half of it.
I can actually.
Oh,
yeah. So one of the falls actually really did hurt my knee, and I take it a little bit easy after that. But thankfully I can feel that, right? And man, yeah. So I know when to hold back a little bit.
Is the goal? I seen one of your goals is to represent Australia. Is that correct?
Absolutely, man. In 4 months of playing or shooting hoops, mostly I represented New South Wales.
Yeah, wow.
I'm not saying I'm going to represent Australia in another 4 months, but I'm going to get there. At the end of last year, I was at a development camp in Canberra at the AIS. And as I was there, they had the Olympic logo on top of one of the buildings. And I looked at that and something it's like this voice from inside of me knew with conviction that this is what I'm heading towards. And, I've been thinking about it since I first started. I wonder what it'd be like to be on court, wearing the green and gold, representing my country overseas and wherever. And watching the Paralympics, like, it just inspires me. And now I play with the Wollongong Rollerhawks. So twice a week, I'm down in Berkeley training with them. And that team, they have been so good to me. They've taken me on board, and some of the best players in Australia represent that team. Half the team have represented Australia already and still are. And training with those guys is boosting my skill, boosting my ability, but also my confidence on court too. So not only am I doing the training to make sure I have the skill, but I have the confidence to show up. And my plays are getting a lot better. I'm learning the game a lot more. My game IQ is really increasing, and I'm going to represent Australia.
You will.
And I feel it. I mean, I've never spoken about this publicly, but before my injury, I wanted to be a commando.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for a while, man. For a few years. And just being able to represent my country and protect its people is something that seems so honorable. And just the idea of representing Australia is something I really liked. Look, am I going to be a commando now? No. I'm going to be wearing that green and gold, wearing the jersey to represent Australia, though. That's one thing I know.
You will, bro. You will. It just goes to show how important it is to surround yourself with high quality people. Especially like the team you mentioned, they've nearly all played for Australia. If you surround yourself, you train and play with those people, you're going to step up to that level as well, and it's just a matter of time. Man, my skill has just gone tenfold, in the right direction because of these guys. Being around people that are in positions that you want to be, there's nothing that's going to progress you faster. And I'm just very blessed that I happened to meet some of them. They were the coaches for the New South Wales team, Brett Stibners, Sean Russell, Jerry Houston. I'm very grateful for these guys. All these guys have represented Australia, and they've given me the advice that I need. Fuck yeah, bro. I'm pumped for you because I know the person that you are, the mindset that you have, I can see you in the green and gold very, very soon.
Thank you, bro. I feel it.
Next, though, you got a world record attempt. When is that? What is it? How did that all come about? Tell me.
Yep. So these world records I'm going to go for, man, I got to say, so where it started was I have a friend and he's really big on PR, communications, media. That's his area of expertise, right? And I have this, like I want to share my message and I want to not just, speaking at schools, speaking at companies, it's brilliant. I love it. But I want to really reach people on a bigger scale. And I reached out to my friend Keith. I'm very, very blessed to have him in my life. And I said, look, I've got this message. I want to reach people. I've got this mission and I want to be amplifying it. I want to be reaching the world. And we started developing some ideas about how we could go about that. Some of the ideas we parked temporarily. The one idea was a world record attempt. He looked on my Instagram and he saw there's Matt doing pull-ups, there's Matt doing bench press. You know what? He can do a few pull-ups. Let me start a conversation with my friend Marcus. And so Keith connected me with his friend Marcus Bondi, and with this conversation, he's like, Matt, do you reckon you could climb a rope? And I was like, I reckon I could. And I started looking at different records and stuff. I found one on the rope climb. And he said, Matt, when you're going to train in the gym by yourself, make sure you do towel pull-ups because they're going to help you with your grip strength and also to increase your speed on the rope and all that stuff. So I applied for the fastest 5-meter rope climb, and I also applied for towel pull-ups. And when I saw that there was a towel pull-up record, it shocked me. And I was like, wait, I'm going to train for that as well. Now, look, will I hit both of these records? There's nothing to say for certainty that I will. All that I know is I'm training my ass off every single day, whether it be on court or in the gym or at Bondi, and I'm training with Marcus Bondi. And, Keith's, I'm really blessed to have Keith Saggers in my life. He's transformed it. The support that I've had has been really amazing. And so we're sharing this message of the only way is up. We're not just doing this to build my brand. We're doing this to actually create some social change and inspire a message of hope that no matter, look, if you're going through a rough patch, if it's anxiety, if it's depression, if it's whatever, no matter what you've been through, you know what the beautiful part about my journey is right now? That I'm still in the wheelchair. People look at me and say, that guy's, gone through something, clearly. Perfect. Because when they see me attempt these world records and actually achieve a world record, how far down can someone fall, but how far can they rise? The gap in between that is so huge. And showing that the only way is up, literally by climbing a rope and by doing towel pull-ups and all that stuff, but by also through my example. Not because what I say, not because what I do, but who I am. And people are going to feel that.
Actions speak louder than words, bro. That's
absolutely
one of my biggest mottos, man. And you're definitely doing that. What is the current record at the moment?
So the rope climb is ridiculous, man. 3.99 seconds in 5-meter rope climb, 3.99 seconds. Then the towel pull-ups, it's the most amount of towel pull-ups you can do in a minute. The record is 33.
Yeah, okay. Wow. When are you looking to smash these? Because I know you're going to smash them. So when are you looking to smash them?
In April.
April?
Yeah.
That's coming quick.
It's coming quick, man.
How you feeling?
Good, man. I've seen significant progress in the period of time that I've been working on this since Keith connected me with Marcus. Marcus's support has been just phenomenal. I mean, as a current Guinness World Record holder himself, he knows all the tips, the tricks, and he's like, man, this guy is just, for lack of a better word, an expert, man. He's the living example of what functional fitness looks like. Dude, the guy's like 56 and he looks like he's 20. He's got the energy of a 20-year-old and he has, man, I'm very blessed. Very blessed.
I'm excited for you. Definitely excited.
Can't wait.
As we start to wrap up, I wanted to ask you 3 questions because in our first podcast, this came up. Prior to your injury, you had 3 questions about life. what's the meaning of my life? If I was dead, would anything change? And my valuable part to society. Now, you've answered this in bits and pieces throughout our conversation, but to put it in a whole, how would you answer those 3 questions right now?
I'm going to start with the last question. Am I a valuable part to society? Yes. Absolutely. If I was gone and dead, would anything change? I've spoken, I can't remember how many times now, live, whether it be my story, whether it be running a workshop, whether it be podcasts like this, whether it be whatever, even just a conversation. None of these things would have happened if I wasn't here. And so what's the meaning of my life? My mission, like I said, is to influence meaningful change in other people's lives. You know, I can't change anyone. The least I could do is be an example of what's possible. And by my example, influence them. By my sharing, by my workshop, by my whatever. Be the model for what they can do to create meaningful change in their life. And meaning is where it's at. Because, you know, when on this whole journey, what's the meaning of my life? I came to the conclusion that the meaning of life is the meaning you give things. At the end of the day, we all die. So it's meaningless. So while we're here, let's choose to give things meaning however we see fit.
I love that. Love that. We have a closing tradition on the podcast where the previous guest leaves a question for the next guest. The question I've got for you today is, how well do you know yourself?
I'm still learning. I feel like I'm this student that's, you know, ever evolving in all areas, whether it be self-awareness, whether it be my level of presence. Everything is still progressing. I'm still learning about me. Look, I speak with conviction, especially about my purpose, that's ever evolving as well. We're always learning. Other people, our experiences, but also from ourselves.
Fuck yeah, bro. I've really enjoyed today's conversation. It was a lot better than our first one, that's for sure. But Matt, I appreciate you once again for making the time to come out here, have these conversations. It's going to impact a lot of people. It's impacted myself, and I've learned a lot too. So, man, thank you so much.
I appreciate you, bro. Man, seeing you again, talking to you, it's always a pleasure. So, thank you.
My guy. Let's go.
Much love, man.